Hello again, friends. It's been a little bit since I have made any videos. Maybe it's been at least 2 weeks, I want to say. Um, I've had a lot of stuff going on, having to do a lot of work outside in the heat, and it's just been exhausting me. So, what the funny thing is, I've been wanting to make this video since about 2 days after my last video that I shared all the supplements that I take for chronic pain and just some health issues I've had. And I was discussing autoimmune disorders and mast cell activation syndrome and anti-TNF supplements. And oddly enough, the next day or 2 days later, it all kind of came in gradually. But first I came across a video about epigenetics. I'm not even sure how I got it, to be honest with you, but it's the same guy. This is probably how I came across it. It's the same guy that has the website, the Self-Hacked website. I think Joe Cohen is his name, and he has gotten involved in epigenetics. He had a lot of health issues, I believe very similar to what we've dealt with. And so I was looking at this genetic test kit. I've gotten it in the mail. I haven't been able to do it yet because I wake up in the morning, my mouth is so dry, and you have to do it first thing in the morning before you drink anything, and you're supposed to, send off so much spit, and like right now I just don't have any. And so I've got that waiting. But the second thing, once I went down that rabbit hole a little bit, the second thing was it brought back something to my attention again that I had looked at in the past and kind of dropped it. And as you can tell from looking at the screen, it has to do with Mercury. I'll just give you a little background as to why this is important to me, and then I'm going to tell you what I'm doing about it. So, growing up, I just had horrible teeth, and nobody ever tried to figure out why. That's just kind of how it was. I can't tell you how many teeth I had pulled before I had my braces. Some of them were permanent teeth, but every molar had an amalgam filling in it, and from a very early age. Whenever I got my adult teeth, I got my braces, I think, when I was 8. And then the teeth that got pulled, the baby teeth, I don't know when the adult teeth came in, but let's say I had my molars filled by the age of 10. So I had amalgam fillings my entire childhood almost. And I got those removed about 15 years ago. So I knew enough. I had learned through the vitamin supplement company that we had been involved with about 20 years ago. I had learned about the dangers of the fillings, and I also knew that you had to get them removed a certain way, and I went through that whole process. But let me back up a little bit. So I had mentioned before that I was sick all the time as a kid. I had chronic fatigue. I attributed it to being an athlete and just wearing myself out. And now that I'm looking at everything, I'm thinking maybe that's not what was going on. But I had both of my children when I had the fillings in my mouth. And I have always, for years, I've thought to myself, my second child was the sicker of the two, and I kept thinking, why is she sicker when she got everything better than my first child? And let me explain. So my first child, when he was born, for months, I don't know when it ever stopped, he was just crying all the time, miserable baby. It was so bad that I eventually had to give up breastfeeding with him, and we finally found a formula that he was a little bit happier with. But He was, like, people said, oh, he's got colic. It was beyond colic. It was a nightmare. Vomiting all the time. If I had had my daughter first, I would have known something was more wrong with him than what I realized. I just thought, well, babies cry. So, I attributed a lot of it to, he practically came out teething. He got his first teeth when he was 2 months old. And by the time he was 10 months old, he had 10 teeth. So, like, he was constantly teething. So, I was like, oh, he's got gas. Oh, he's got, he's teething. Oh, the formula wasn't working for him. But when I look back, it was just something was going on. I wish I had known about chiropractic care at that time, but I just really didn't. So we just kind of, trudged through and did what we could. And 19 months later, now my son, so he was on formula from day one, really. He was born with low blood sugar, and so in the hospital they wanted to give him formula to keep his blood sugar up. And I finally think I gave up pumping at maybe 4 months, and then he was exclusively on formula. And he got the typical baby food. He was vaccinated up through 2 years, and I stopped at 2 years. At that point, my second, was 6 months, and I realized every time he gets vaccinated, he's getting sick, and this is just ridiculous. Why am I doing this? So, my daughter came along 19 months later, and I had learned a lot between the two. It's only 19 months, but I just learned a lot of things that I should have done differently. She was much easier baby, so much easier. She breastfed for 27 months. Her first foods, all of her food was homemade. Her first food was avocado. She was just a super healthy eater. She wouldn't eat jarred food if I tried, and I actually did try one time because we were out of town and it was really hard to make her food. But she was only like 9 months old, I believe, and she was like, no, give me the real stuff. So she got the healthiest food. She was breastfed longer, and ironically, as soon as she stopped breastfeeding, 27 months, and every time we tried to wean, she would get sick, and then I would go, okay, well, I'm going to nurse her, and it just kept going that way, and finally I was like, I can't do this anymore. But she, at 3, exactly right on her 3rd birthday, she got her first urinary tract infection, and then from like 3 to 7, she had chronic urinary tract infections. She also was more sensitive as far as to food coloring and just different things. It caused more ADHD in her and behavior issues in her than it did my son, I would say. They both were kind of sensitive to it, but she just always had something going on. And so, and also she was born in the fall. She got her first cold while I was breastfeeding her. She was like 2 weeks old. She came home from the hospital pretty much with a cold, and it was horrible. But she was just a happier baby overall, and slept better. She was sleeping through the night before my first was, and so I thought, oh my gosh, what a dream baby. So as they got older, I noticed that my son, who had so as he got older, he was sick. He had asthma, he had croup. I talked about all these things before, but I didn't really talk about, I don't think, he had some like OCD kind of tendencies, and just real kind of anxious, and just some kind of bizarre behavior. My sister even said at one point, do you think he's on the spectrum? And he wasn't. It wasn't that severe. He's just very particular, and maybe he had some weird things going on. But as he got older, at some point I realized, all these things have kind of gone away, and he became more typical, more he was shy, really shy at one point, and he just completely turned around, was not shy anymore. And my daughter almost did the opposite. She was very outgoing. As a matter of fact, my son used to make my daughter go up and ask for things for him, like at a restaurant. If he needed more ketchup or something, he would make her go up and ask, because she had no fear of strangers and would talk to anybody. And so they kind of traded those positions, and I kind of have, for a long time, thought that's really weird. Why in the world would that happen? I'm glad for him that he, came out of his shell and everything, but it was almost like he had something going on that went away. And I always wondered, did it start getting better because I stopped vaccinating him? And I don't know. I have no idea, but that's a fair assumption, I think, when you look at what Mercury will do. Now, Mercury, of course, it was in vaccines back then. They have taken it out of a lot of vaccines, but I have learned, I looked this up a few years ago and couldn't find the information, but I have learned now that you can give if you have fillings in your mouth, the mercury can go to your babies in utero and through breastfeeding. And that's kind of the point I'm getting at. My son wasn't getting it in breast milk because he was formula fed. And my daughter was getting it. They both got it in utero, but my daughter was getting it through the breast milk for 2 years. So now I'm looking back and piecing things together and going, oh my gosh, is this what we've been dealing with all this time? So I did actually investigate this idea years ago when she was sick, and I dismissed it because I think one of her doctors threw me off of it. They were looking at something else, and I never came back to it because I couldn't find anything that said, yeah, they can get it in utero, and from breastfeeding as well. So now I'm looking at it again, and I'm realizing it's very possible that what she is dealing with and what I am dealing with is mercury toxicity. So, as I mentioned earlier, I got my fillings out about 15 years ago. What I did not do is go through the chelating process. And I felt better immediately. So I was like, oh, well, yay, good. I'm good because I feel better. And there probably was a degree of, they weren't in my mouth. I wasn't continually getting poisoned from what was in my mouth. But from having that in my mouth for years, it was already in my organs and tissues and brain. And so the reason I'm concerned now, back then it was like, oh, I have some chronic fatigue, or I was having gallbladder issues, and when you have gallbladder issues, you're having liver issues. Always. And so I knew I was having, all these allergies and liver problems. I was just very sickly, and I started getting better when I got them out, so I said, hey, I'm good. Well, now I am having more serious symptoms that are more concerning to me, and I need to figure out if my issue is mercury, because I'm having hearing loss, my vision's going, and I'm having some cognitive issues, like literally some dementia type symptoms. Now, I've probably mentioned my mother died from dementia just a few months ago. And as I was reading some of the symptoms of mercury toxicity, I was like, this looks like Parkinson's disease. Like, all of these symptoms that I'm reading is exactly what I saw my mother dealing with. And I thought, well, I wonder if my mother also had mercury fillings when she was pregnant with me. I knew that she had a lot of teeth problems because when she died, she had no teeth left in her mouth. She didn't have any teeth for many years before that, but I don't know when she got her fillings, or, I don't know the timing of all that. So I don't know if something was passed down through from her to me. that's kind of where the epigenetics got me thinking, because the way he explained it was, if something's going on in the mom, it turns on the genes in the children, and if you can figure out what genes were turned on, you can turn them off, if that makes sense. I think that's a very simplistic way of looking at it. And so what I potentially did when I was mercury toxic and had my children, it affected their genes to where they are maybe even more affected than I would be. And also, I want to say this, because a lot of people are like, mercury is not an issue. You know, there's so many people that are totally fine that have mercury fillings. And that's another thing. Genetically, not everybody is affected the same. And I think this is something that they really need to look at with vaccines. We need to figure out who is sensitive to mercury and not give those kids the vaccines that are harming them. And so that's one thing that I want to find out with the gene test. I'll probably do another video on that, because it's really interesting how all of that works. But so because my kids have always been sensitive to things, and I somewhat have been as well, I'm wondering if, and they are worse than me, so this makes sense, if something happened in me that unlocked this genetic problem for them. But I thought it would make sense that we would be more sensitive to toxins than the average person. So that's what I'm looking at right now, and I wanted to share some information with you. The first thing you should do, let me say this too real quick. My sister, she happens to be living here right now, and when I was looking at all this, I just asked her, you know, hey, because I knew she had all silver fillings as well. And I said, hey, have you ever gotten any fillings removed? And she said, yeah, a couple of years ago I started getting my silver fillings removed. And I said, well, did they do anything special? Did you go to a special dentist to have it done? And she said, no, my regular dentist did it. And everything kind of came crashing down on me at that point, because about a year ago, she started having, well, longer than that, because she's been here almost a year. It was around the same time, the same exact time she was getting her fillings out by a dentist that didn't know what they were doing. She started having a lot of issues at work, and she thought it was because there were dogs barking next door constantly. She worked in an office that was right next to a dog groomer, and these barking dogs were driving her crazy. Eventually, she had to leave work. She was on disability, and then she was never able to go back, and she's had so many cognitive problems since that time period. And when she told me that, you know, the dentist didn't take any precautions, I'm just like, oh my gosh, this is exactly what is going on with her. So when you get them taken out without any precautions, you get an immediate, even though she's had those fillings in her mouth for however many years, they've been in there slowly leaking into her body. But when they went to take them out, when they drill them, it creates a lot of vapors that is it's more toxic. It's a higher amount. And so that set off these, you know, things that she's dealing with. And also, I asked her if the dentist had on a gas mask, and she said that the dentist did. So the dentist knows that she shouldn't be exposed to it, because she does it a lot maybe, and she thinks that it's a work hazard maybe from doing it a lot, kind of like radiologists who are around x-rays a lot. But she took no precautions for my sister at all. And that's something I'm going to have to discuss with her later, because she should be suing. 100% she should be suing, because as you will learn if you watch this video that's on the screen right now, it's on YouTube, Evidence of Harm. It's about an hour and 20 minutes. It's a really good film about how there's a battle kind of going back and forth between the people that know that mercury causes problems for some people, and the American Dental Association. It discusses the history of the issue, and it will flat out tell you that they know that there's an issue with mercury and they're doing nothing about it. So I have thought about it, and I actually thought if I wanted to, I don't know how hard it would be to sue the American Dental Association for the simple fact that they know that mercury is dangerous. They knew it back when I was a kid getting these fillings put in, and they did not inform anyone. And it blows my mind that they can get away with this. But this film will piss you off. It will, especially if you have fillings in your mouth right now, it's going to piss you off. So just be ready. But it is really good. It's a story. It follows I think she's a news reporter, and the story where she got diagnosed with MS. They were like, oh, it looks like you have MS, and it turned out to be that she had gotten some fillings removed, and without the proper precautions taken, and she was poisoned. So so the first thing I want to say before I go any further, because I want to make this clear, there are doctor's offices that will do chelating with IV, like IV chelation for heavy metals. If that works at all, and I don't know that it does, because everything in the protocol that I'm looking at says don't even do that. But if it does, it's going to work on the people that were just poisoned, where it's not embedded everywhere, in your brain and hasn't been there for years. So let's say this week you get poisoned somehow, and next week you go get chelation. It's probably going to work pretty good for you. But if you've had it for years and you know that it's deep down wherever it will go, which is basically the tissues and organs in the brain, you have to do a long and slow process. And so don't think, oh, I've got to go get this IV chelation. Don't do that. Look at this information first before you do anything. And what I learned when I started doing research online is I learned about the Andy Cutler protocol. This is okay. So Andy Cutler has passed away, but there's still, all of his information is still out there. He has a book. He has books. I don't know how many, but this is one of the websites that if you just Google Andy Cutler chelation, you will get a bunch of websites. This is one of the first one that pops up, and it has the protocol on here. What really stinks about the protocol, and this is why I want to make sure you hear me say, don't just go get the IV chelation, because that's easy. It's real easy to go get hooked up and get, this stuff put in you. The actual protocol is complicated, and you have to read it a bunch of times to really understand what you're doing, especially if you have brain fog and cognitive issues like me and most people that have mercury toxicity. But there is, when I say it's complicated, you have to take something every 3 hours, including during the night. So you're going to be tempted to be like, I'm not doing that. I want to go do the IV chelation because that's easy. Just don't. Keep reading until you understand why not to do that. Because it can make you worse, and it can make things really bad. And there's a lot of people that learn that the hard way. Listen to them and just do it the right way, even though it's harder. But I want to say this. So if you have silver fillings, you have to get them out. You have to get them out by somebody that knows what they're doing. It's a smart, let me show you this website here, where you want to go is IAOMT.org. That's the International Academy of Oral Medicine and Toxicology. There's tons of information on that website, and they can show you how to find a dentist that knows what they're doing. And you want to find a dentist that is SMART certified, and it'll tell you on there whether they're just members of this organization or if they're SMART certified. So make sure you understand the distinction there. It will tell you on the website, but just pay attention to that when you're looking. There is a certain way that they take out the fillings, and you actually I think it's covered in the video. I want to say it's in Evidence of Harm. You'll see if you watch that movie. You'll see what I'm talking about. So if you go to your regular dentist and they tell you, oh yeah, I can do that, do not trust them unless they are SMART certified and they bring in, go through all the different things, and like if you think you want to go with them and you try and you don't see them do any of those things, just walk out of the office. Seriously, because it will just make things so much worse if you get them taken out the wrong way. But you do have to get them out before you can do the chelation. So, and you have to have them out for 3 months before you can actually, there's 2 different things that you can do, and you can start one, I think it's DM, I don't have the protocol in front of me, but, oh wait, I do have the store that sells the stuff. You're either going to take DMPS or DMSA, and that is for other metals. That doesn't chelate the mercury, but you can start doing those while you are waiting the 3 months, because you probably have other metals in you, but you can do those while you're waiting to be able to do the ALA, which is alpha lipoic acid, which is actually what is going to get the mercury out of you. I don't want to talk too much about the protocol because you're going to have to do all the reading yourself. But the only place right now where you can get the supplements, I'm just going to save you a lot of time. I went through all this. I looked everywhere. I looked for a U.S. supplier. The only place you can get the DMPS and the DMSA is livingsupplements.com. This is what the website looks like. Every Andy Cutler page or website will send you to this website. And the ALA you can get in the US, but you're going to be taking such a small amount, and they're like, I try to figure out if I bought the ALA here and I wanted to put it in smaller amounts, and it wasn't even worth it. It would be cheaper to do it that way if you could, but it's such a tiny amount, it would just drive me crazy to have to worry about it. So eventually you'll be taking more ALA, and you can start buying that in the US, but just know that you're going to have to order from this website. It is in the UK, and I think that they get the product from South Africa, I believe. So, if you're just getting your fillings out, then you can order this stuff while you're waiting to be able to start it, and just, so you'll have it on hand. So there's a website here, Cutler Success Stories, where you can read different stories, success stories of people that have chelated and how their symptoms changed and things like that. And I wanted to show you, I have something at the end that I discovered that is really cool. I don't know if you can see this list at all, but I'm going to leave that on there. It's the list of all the things. Now, if you look up Andy Cutler's book, this is on the back of his book. It lists all the different things that you can get misdiagnosed with when it's actually mercury toxicity. And there's actually probably more than what is on this list. Reading it, just I'm like, my daughter's had that, she's had that, she's had that. The main thing is any autoimmune disease can be caused by this. It can be caused by other things as well, but it's definitely on the list of things that cause autoimmune disorders. And also Parkinson's disease is on here. And I told you my mom died from dementia. She had Lewy body dementia, which is related to Parkinson's, and she probably actually had Parkinson's. I think they misdiagnosed her, or just didn't diagnose her, because she had cancer, and cancer was the priority. But she had restless leg syndrome probably since the 30s, and that is kind of a precursor to Parkinson's. A lot of people that have that actually end up getting Parkinson's. As a matter of fact, my mother was taking a Parkinson's medication for the restless leg syndrome, so it may have masked symptoms that she would have had. You know, she never really had tremors until near the end. And not everybody has tremors with Parkinson's either. That, I didn't realize that. If she had had tremors early on, we would have known. It would have been a no-brainer, but she had a lot of the other behaviors and symptoms and things of Parkinson's. So, you know, it pains me to think that it was something like this that caused her dementia and or Parkinson's. And, you know, it's just ridiculous that there's people that know that these things are dangerous and don't care enough to make sure people know or take the stuff off the market. One of the stories in the movie, The Evidence of Harm, was a dental hygienist that was disabled, and you're going to get really pissed off at the dentist that she worked for, because he is just he is a jerk. I wanted to throw something at the TV when I was watching it. He just annoyed me. But anyway, all this to say, look at this. If you're having health problems, look at this. If you have silver fillings in your mouth, you need to get them out properly, and then you need to chelate. And I apologize that it is just not a good thing to go through. I'm already dreading it. There is something that before you start doing the chelating, there's something called the core 4, I think. But I want to share something with you that I discovered, because I had to start doing this. I went ahead and started doing it now, so that when my stuff comes in, I'll be ready to start taking it. Okay, so the core 4 is magnesium, vitamin C, vitamin E, and zinc. So I changed my vitamin regimen a little bit, and I added the vitamin E and the zinc, and I stopped taking my daily vitamin, and I'll probably will take a B complex as well. But right now, I kind of went way down on the vitamins that I'm taking. But I had these magnesium already because I wanted to use them for my mom. I was going to put them in her food, and then I realized that you have to put them in water. And one of them you have to put in cold water because it warms up. So I don't even know which one it is. It doesn't even matter. But I already had those, and I ordered the sodium ascorbate. I had some before, but we used it all, so I said, well, I better get some more. So that came in, and I said, you know, I think what I'm going to do is start using that powdered magnesium. And I went ahead and got powdered vitamin C, and I'll go ahead and just start drinking that in my water, because I knew I was going to be doing a lot of yard work out in the heat, and I was going to have to rehydrate. And you know, that'll be easier. It'll be less pills I have to take. So I started using these 3 powders. First, I did the magnesium because the sodium hadn't come in yet. These do not taste good in water by themselves. I was like, well, let me put some lemon in there. So I squeezed a whole lemon into, if you can see the bottle in the background, it's probably, I don't know if that's a quart. It's a regular mason jar size, I guess. Not the little one, but the bigger one. I think it's a quart. So put ice cold water in that, and squeeze a whole lemon and the magnesium, and I couldn't believe how good it was. It tasted like lemonade. And then when I added the sodium ascorbate when it came, it actually was even better. And I'm so glad, because it's hard to drink something that just doesn't taste good. I mean, let's face it, we're not going to drink something that we don't like. But I wanted to share this because I used this all last week, actually for 2 weeks, and it was really good as far as rehydrating. I was sweating a lot, and one of my issues recently has been being able to hydrate properly. I finally decided, a year or so ago, I just have to drink pickle juice or something, because water wasn't enough, and I didn't really have anything, to add to the water to hydrate properly. But what I figured was, if I didn't put anything in the water, I would drink so much water and it wasn't doing anything for me, and I would feel sick from drinking the water, and I was still dehydrated. So using this, I could not believe how good it worked, as far as replacing the electrolytes, basically making sure my electrolytes weren't going down from sweating so much, and just replacing it with just water. But I want to share this because if you end up doing this protocol, and even if you don't, if you want to use this for rehydrating, it tastes really good. You don't have to add any sugar. Now, I do want to say this, actually. I have read, because my daughter, with her health issues, we've tried a bunch of different electrolytes and the different drinks and things, and making our own. I have read that you should add sugar to any electrolyte drink that you make, whether it's honey or something that has sugar in it, because that is what opens up the cells so that the water and electrolytes go into the cells. I'm wondering, I guess lemon has sugar in it. It's so sour, it's hard to imagine that it does, but I guess technically it does. It's a fruit. It's got to have something. So that must be sugar in there that's helping. But if you do make your own, just keep that in mind, that you do have to have something in there that acts as a sugar. It doesn't have to be a lot, but you do have to have something in there. So but yeah, this is, as far as, electrolytes, this is probably, or electrolyte drinks, this is probably a more affordable one, and you're getting the magnesium that everybody needs. Anyway, everybody's low in magnesium, and especially I discovered this too, that if you have mercury toxicity, that you're going to have low magnesium. And that was one of the issues that my daughter had. And the reality is, she's probably way worse than I am as far as the mercury toxicity. Or, like I said earlier, it has unlocked genes for her that are affecting her more than I am affected. So either or, we've got to get this figured out. And I'm hoping that I will have success with this. And then she will want to do it after I have, because right now she's like, we've tried so many things, and just tell me what I got to do. And I'm like, I can't, she's gone and married. I can't do that anymore, because I'm not there to say, here, take this or take that. She's got to figure it out on her own and get her own system down so that she's taking everything when she needs to. So anyway, this got way longer than I wanted it to, but hopefully this is information that will help you. I know I'm leaving something out. I can't think of what it is right now. I'm in the back of my mind. I've been trying to figure out what I have forgotten to tell you, but mostly go watch that movie, and from there start looking up things that resonate with you. And maybe you don't have mercury toxicity, but you might have other heavy metals. This is what I wanted to say. You can go get tested. You can get your hair tested. But one thing I've read is, if you've had mercury in your body for a long time, it's going to be hiding in cracks and crevices and places where it's not going to, say, here I am. So I'm not even going to bother getting tested. I know that it's in me because I had the fillings for so many years. So don't bother unless you had a recent toxicity. That'll show up in blood, and I don't know about urine. I don't know what all they test. I didn't really pay much attention to that just because I knew it wasn't going to be worth it for me to test. So, but don't go get blood work done, and if it shows that there's nothing there, then you think you're scot-free because it's not going to show up in your blood. So I would just assume if you're having health problems and you have silver fillings, or you had them in the past and you never went through the process of chelation, then you need to go through the process of chelation, because the last thing that I want to do or wish on anybody is to have to go through dementia in the later stages of life. Any kind of dementia, they're all not fun, and that is not the way you want to go out. So that's the main thing I'm worrying about right now, is getting my brain function back, and hopefully my hearing, and some of my sight as well. But anyway, I'm going to cut this off now. I have other videos that I would like to do, and it's getting late. I need to go to bed. But you guys, if you have any questions on any of this, just ask down below. And I apologize for if you're just now discovering this and it's going to suck doing this, but just do it because it's worth it, especially if you have young kids or you want to see your grandkids grow up. Take care of yourself, and if you need to chelate, then there's a Facebook group. I forgot to mention that as well, but there is a Facebook group, and there's a lot of help out there. It's a very well organized group, and it'll make you feel like you're not alone, and you can get through it because they have. And hopefully going forward, we will all just be a lot healthier. Y'all have a blessed day, and I will talk at you again soon. Bye.